y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie and I mostly make content surrounding topics such as mental health, makeup, as well as music. I also have been doing a Let's Get Clinical series on my channel where I educate you on various mental health conditions present in either the DSM-V or the ICD-11. For today's video, we are going to be discussing the symptoms, prevalence, and treatment options for narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is characterized in the DSM as a Cluster B personality disorder. Cluster B personality disorders tend to be categorized as dramatic, emotional, or erratic mental health conditions. The Cluster B personality disorders listed in the DSM include not only narcissistic PD, but also histrionic, borderline, as well as antisocial personality disorders. So let's get into the symptoms first off regarding narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder, according to the DSM, is described as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So there are 9 possible symptoms, and an individual only needs to have 5 of these symptoms in order to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. First, we has a grandiose sense of self-importance, such as that they may exaggerate their achievements and talents. They may expect to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Next is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. 3 is believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or even institutions. 4, requires excessive admiration. 5, has a sense of entitlement, such as unreasonable expectations of especially favored treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. 6, is interpersonally exploitative, meaning that they take advantage of others to achieve their own needs. 7, lacks empathy. These individuals are unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. 8 is that they may often be envious of others or believe that others are envious of them. 9, and the final symptom listed here, is that these individuals show arrogant or haughty behaviors or attitudes. The term haughty refers to being superior or disdainful. Symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder tend to begin by early adulthood and present themselves in a variety of contexts. The self-esteem of people with this condition tends to be extremely fragile, which is why the symptom having to do with requiring excessive admiration would make sense. Although it may not be obvious these individuals struggle with self-esteem issues, many people with this condition may be preoccupied with how well they're doing as well as how favorably they're perceived by others. People with narcissistic personality disorder may also struggle to form relationships. However, they may only tend to form romantic or platonic relationships if the other person involved seems to be able to advance this individual's purposes or enhance their self-esteem. Individuals with NPD may also be contemptuous as well as impatient with others when they discuss their problems, despite the individual with the condition doing a great deal of talking about themselves and their personal concerns. So this makes interpersonal difficulties prevalent for this population, and it may also be difficult for those of us out there to have relationships with these individuals, especially if they are prone to taking advantage of other people to inflate their own self-esteem. Someone with narcissistic personality disorder in alignment with criterion 9, which again has to do with an arrogant or haughty attitude, could even describe a waiter who was clumsy as rude or stupid. The vulnerability present in self-esteem for individuals with NPD makes them very sensitive to injury from criticism or defeat. Criticism can even lead these individuals to feeling humiliated, degraded, hollow, and empty. They may react to criticism with disdain, rage, and even a counterattack. They may go into social withdrawal in order to protect their external grandiosity. Vocational functioning, such as the ability to maintain a career for this population, may also be low since they struggle to accept criticism, even when it may be constructive and warranted. Individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, due to their feelings of shame as well as humiliation, may, as I previously mentioned, exhibit social withdrawal. They can also experience depressed mood, which may be diagnosable in the form of either persistent depressive disorder, formerly known as dysthymia, or major depressive disorder. These sustained periods of grandiosity these individuals experience can even trigger hypomanic mood. Narcissistic personality disorder has common comorbidities with anorexia nervosa as well as substance abuse disorders, specifically those regarding cocaine addiction. Other cluster B personality disorders, such as histrionic, borderline, or antisocial personality disorders, may be comorbid with this condition as well. In regard to the development and course of this mental health condition, it's important to note that narcissistic behavior or tendencies can be common in adolescence. However, this isn't always an indicator that the adolescent is at risk of developing this condition in adulthood. Individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, besides having these narcissistic behaviors, struggle with physical and occupational limitations that tend to become more noticeable throughout their aging process, such as that they need to maintain relationships and a career and be more independent into their adulthood. It's also important to mention for us therapists out there, intern here, in order to diagnose a client with this condition, the grandiosity from mania or hypomanic episodes needs to be determined to be from this condition as opposed to distinctly from bipolar disorder. Substance use disorders, when persistent, can also have symptom overlap with narcissistic tendencies. Therefore, it's important to acknowledge, did these symptoms come about when the individual was using substances for a long period of time, or did the symptoms come about and then they fell into a substance use disorder to cope with said symptoms? Although this is the DSM-V, in regard to prevalence for NPD, the prevalence rates come from the diagnostic criterion present in the DSM-IV. They range anywhere from 0 to 6.2% in community samples. In regard to gender, 50 to 75% of those diagnosed with this condition are males. Before I fully delve into treatment options for narcissistic personality disorder, I do want to talk about challenges and limitations in regard to treating these individuals. I don't want anyone to think this diagnosis is untreatable, because it actually isn't, and there are some treatment options for it. However, there's a limited amount of research on the evidence base of these treatments, since individuals with this condition don't always tend to seek therapy and also have some issues within the therapeutic relationship. According to an article I found from Bell et al. In 2019, psychotherapy may be hampered with narcissistic individuals due to therapeutic alliance difficulties, which just refers to the therapeutic relationship being difficult both for the client and the therapist. There's also a tendency to blame external factors for these individuals' problems, and they tend to focus on their own perceptions with little curiosity about the perspective of others. It's important for therapists to use unconditional positive regard and empathy. However, these aspects may not be beneficial for this population, especially early on in treatment, because a client with narcissistic tendencies may feel uncomfortable with this response and it may affect the relationship. According to another article I found from Kealy et al., dated in 2017, attachment-oriented approaches in therapy help to modify distorted representations of self and others, and therapists can also utilize mentalization, which I talked about as a viable proposed treatment option for antisocial personality disorder. Mentalization has to do with the ability to think about complex mental states, specifically by reflecting on the client's internal experiences within a strong therapeutic relationship. One common treatment option I found that appears to have some empirical evidence in treating borderline personality disorder as well as narcissistic personality disorder is called transference-focused psychotherapy. It has to do with acknowledging internal representations of the self and others, as this has to do with the pathology of narcissism. Columbia University offers specific training in transference-focused psychotherapy for therapists interested in treating these populations. They describe this form of therapy as a manualized, evidence-based treatment for severe personality disorders, specifically borderline and narcissistic. To address the clinical needs of this patient population, TFP combines a psychodynamic approach with structure and limit setting, and that's going to be very important for this population because they struggle so much with their relationships, and the therapist needs to make sure that they are not manipulated in the relationship in order to keep it strong and model what a healthy relationship is going to look like. The goals of transference-focused psychotherapy have to do with personality change, which should be reflected in the patient's functioning and satisfaction in their interpersonal and work lives, as well as their symptoms eventually changing. The treatment focuses on internalized images of the self and others that have to do with the patient's interpersonal experiences. The exaggerated, distorted, and unrealistic internal images of self and other that characterize severe personality disorders are associated with difficulties in mood regulation, self-esteem, as well as interpersonal relationships. The treatment aims to modify these unhealthy relationship patterns is to explore them as they come about within therapeutic relationships, so relationship between therapist and client, as well as in the patient's interpersonal life, so in their personal relationships outside of therapy. The aim of this treatment option is to help patients develop more stable, realistic, and better integrated experiences of the self as well as others in hopes of improving their interpersonal functioning and general life adaptations. The last treatment option I want to discuss with you regarding narcissistic personality disorder is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. I've talked a lot about this treatment option on my channel before. Unfortunately, there's still a limited amount of empirical research on whether this is a proper treatment option for this population. However, it does hold some merit because CBT has to do with the social learning involved in self-schemas, such as beliefs about being special or entitled. Specialness and entitlement are definitely part of the self-schema of individuals with narcissistic personality disorder. CBT is a very structured treatment and it attempts to modify these schemas as well as behaviors with treatment goals having to do with the patient's agreement regarding the costs of their narcissistic attitudes and behaviors in their functioning as well as their relationships. Interventions may take form in role-playing exercises and homework assignments. Although CBT has a basic framework, there are CBT models specific to treating personality disorders, so these models may add affect tolerance as well as mindfulness interventions into CBT as a whole. Another article I found from 2017 mentions 6 possible issues in treating individuals with NPD. These include poor boundaries, ambivalence about change, cognitive distortions, idealizing and devaluing providers, poor behavioral health adherence, as well as help rejecting behaviors. So to reiterate, it can be very difficult to treat this population if the individual is resistant to treatment and isn't committed to the process. However, there are ways to get around it, and it's important for therapists to know that these difficulties may arise with this population ahead of time and to receive proper training in treating personality disorders. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think about narcissistic personality disorder. This condition is very sensationalized in the media, and the way I feel we perceive it a lot of the time isn't accurate to the clinical information that you can find online or in the DSM, etc. You can follow my social medias as well. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is JulieCounseling with no underscore, and my Facebook page will be linked down below as well. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye guys.